Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to be installing a EV, electric home charger, in the garage. Don't give me too much crap about an electric car. I'm not a tree hugger. I take care of the environment, but I'm not stupid either. There's a lot of politics involved in all that mess. This is outside of my normal types of videos. I'm usually building fun trucks and cars and turbo stuff and gas guzzlers. I'm not really a big environmentally friendly guy wanting to save the planet with an electric car. I just like cool cars, and this one seemed like a neat next one for us. It's fast because it's electric. It's quiet. Yeah, kind of miss the exhaust sound myself personally. And it's something different, cool technology. I don't know about whether electric cars are good for the environment or not. I'm not really convinced of that personally. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We'll probably learn about all the side effects of what all this is doing to the environment in the next 20, 25 years. And then everybody will change their mind again. Who knows? Many years ago, I had purchased a Tesla Model S. It was one of the earlier years. I think it was a 2014, if I remember correctly. Had it for 6 months and sold it. I couldn't stand it. It was too minimalist for me. Drove very well. It was fun to drive. None of the panels lined up. Doors didn't line up. Hood didn't line up. I found myself always sitting there in the parking lot on conference calls trying to adjust everything to make it right, just because I'm a little ADD about that kind of thing. We had the BMW X7 that was a 2019 fantastic vehicle. By far, I'd say in the top 3 SUVs we've ever owned, and we've had a whole lot of them. My single most favorite is still the LX 570, but that X7, I'd say maybe it's even in the number 2 spot. It was awesome. It was great. But we got it past the point. We were at 50,000 miles. It was time to renew the warranty or do a bunch of maintenance. And it was a very expensive warranty to renew. Plus, it needed new tires, which on the M model of that X7, it has massive rear tires, which you can only get from 2 different vendors, Continental and Pirelli. There's not any other options. And for 4 new tires, take a guess how much it was. It was gonna be $2,600. This is shopping around, getting good prices here and there. It was $2,600 for tires, front and back, plus installation, balancing, and an alignment. 2,600 bucks. That plus the warranty extension, which was around 5,800 bucks for the cheapest reasonable good warranty we could find, plus the fact that it was going to need brakes in the next few months anyway, because 50,000 miles on the original brakes, they went a long way, probably almost time to replace them. That was going to be another 1,200 bucks, I think, give or take. So all that added up, made sense to trade it in, get something else. My wife misses the X7. She loved driving it. I loved driving it. It was a lot of fun. It was a great, gigantic SUV, super heavy, but had plenty of power and drove like a BMW. So what did we trade it for? We got a 2022 Mercedes EQS 450 Plus back into an electric vehicle, hoping that this one is a lot better than the Tesla. So far, it's been a few days. Drives really nice. Drives like an S-Class. It's the S-Class electric vehicle from Mercedes. It's not quite to the same level of an S-Class as far as interior appointments. It feels a little bit more bare, to be perfectly honest. I'll go through and do a full review of it later on. Feels more bare than an S-Class, not quite as luxurious. The interior, to me, if you ignore the electronics and all of that, it feels more like an E-Class that's the size of an S-Class. There's a ton of rear room in the rear seats for leg space and everything. It's massive, just like you would expect in an S-Class. The front feels more like a cockpit, like a Mercedes CLS would. Doesn't quite feel like an S-Class in the front. Feels more sporty like a CLS. And overall, it's okay. It's got a really odd egg shape on the outside, even though it's a massive vehicle from front to back. It's really long. It just doesn't look big and aggressive and luxurious like an S-Class does, in my personal opinion. It doesn't have that presence. Again, I'll do a full review of it later so you guys can get a good look at it, just if you're curious to see what the EQS looks like and the functions and features and things. We didn't get the AMG 580 with all the fully loaded stuff. We got a 450 Plus, kind of the middle of the road model that's perfect for us. And I'll go through that later. But for today's video, we're going to be installing the home charger. Now, you can get one of these no matter what vehicle you have. as long as it's an electric vehicle. It'll work with Teslas if you want to use it for Tesla. That way you have more of a universal charger in the future if you get a non-Tesla electric vehicle. And if you have multiple electric vehicles, they'll all work with this. This is a 50 amp wall-mounted hardwired electric charger. It is the winner of several awards, including the Red Dot Winner Award for 2022. It's made by Autel, A-U-T-E-L. It's on Amazon. Every once in a while you get it on a lightning deal. It's typically $599 on Amazon. I grabbed it during one of those quick few-hour lightning deals. I paid $469 shipped to my door, which is awesome for a 50 amp charger. It's a smart charger, so it's got the phone app integration that will integrate into your phone and give you a whole bunch more functionality than a typical just plug-in type charger. It'll tell you how much power you're using, allow you to schedule the charging if you have cheaper utility billing during certain periods of the night or the weekends. A lot of functionality built into it. Even for the full price of $599, this thing is awesome and filled with features. And this is, I think, their second or third generation, so a lot of the kinks in the first few generations have been worked out. And if you look through the reviews, the hardwired 50 amp is super reliable and has great feedback all around, and the winner of multiple awards. I highly recommend it. If you want the same functionality features on a 50 amp hardwired charger, the next closest ones are probably at $800 to $1,000 or $1,200 range. Personally, that I was looking at for equivalents. There's some Chinese and kind of lower end brands that are cheaper. I wouldn't trust any of that to have sitting in my garage hooked up to an expensive vehicle, and also to the wiring in my house where you could potentially cause a fire. This is an area you don't want to skimp. You want to go with a good charger. Now let's take a look at what's inside. It's a lot of tape. Let's see. Right here. Right here. Is this how you open this box? How do you get in this thing? I flipped this thing around 3 different ways. I can't really figure out where the box opens. So let's try this. Ah, there it is. Okay. Very nice hard foam packaging. I always love seeing well-engineered packaging in a product. That's a field of work, if you didn't know. There are packaging engineers who are tasked and paid very nicely to engineer packaging to keep it small for shipping, but also keep your items protected and keep it looking nice too. And if a company's putting the time, effort, and money into engineering their packaging and having folks on hand, to me, what that means is they take pride in what they do. And you're gonna have good customer support and also a product that they're taking pride in. Let me see if I can do this one-handed. All right. So you've got the screen there. You've got some of your indicators, and I think these are touch buttons. Internet connectivity for your Wi-Fi, power, charge, Bluetooth, and RFID if you want to use that. I think the RFID functionality is if you want to use this outside your garage. If you live in a place where you don't have an enclosed garage and you want to install this outdoors, which you can, there's an indoor-outdoor unit, then you don't want random people to come park and use your charger, so you can use an RFID card that enables you to drive up, plug it in, and use your RFID card to start charging. I think that's what that functionality is. I don't need that because we're inside our home in an enclosed garage, but it's nice to know that that functionality is there if you have an outdoor parking spot. All right, got that piece of packaging out of the way. Let's see. So this one came with a 25-foot cable. I found a few others I liked. I think they were from Lectron. They were not the smart chargers, but they were good chargers as far as capability and reliability. But all the Lectron ones that I wanted came with 20-foot cables. And I need about 22 feet of cable comfortably without worrying about stretching the cable and kinking it. This one had a 25-foot cable, which was perfect for where we park and where the charger is going to end up being. You always want to look at how thick your leads are. This is really nice thick cabling, and it's not the super soft sheathing on the cable. I've seen some of them that, they say 40 amp, and then you look at the cabling and you're wondering how they're going to push 40 amps through wires so thin. it's nice to see that this has thick, heavy-duty cabling. And that's going to be right there wrapped up, the plug that goes into your vehicle. And if you look on the bottom, I got to open this up later once we're getting to the installation. This one, you can see the hole in there. I think that's where your wiring goes in from your wall into the unit for the hard wire. And I'm not sure what this one is for. We'll get to it here in a minute once we get to the installation. First impressions, this thing looks awesome. First things first, I'm trying to see what sort of wiring and breakers are connected from the main panel out to the 240 volt receptacle that we have in the garage. This house was built in 1998 and we're the second owners, so I'm not completely aware of what all's in the walls. I located it down to this pair of 40 amp breakers. It's off right now. It's actually this one, this bottom set. So it's a 40 amp breaker here, but I gotta estimate that with the wire running through the walls and all the way to the other side of the house, where the garage is, it's completely on the opposite side. We're on this side, that side is where the garage is. Right behind this wall is the kitchen, and you've got the range and the fridge and some of the other, well, I guess the range is the main thing that needs 240 volt. And then you've got the AC units here, which also have breakers in there. That's why this main panel is here close to all this stuff. But the garage, where I've got 3 240 volt receptacles, is all the way on the other side of the house. Imagine it's got to be at least 100, maybe 120 foot run from here to there when we consider going through the walls and the ceilings and everything else. So even though we've got a 40 amp breaker here, I imagine by the time we're talking about voltage drop and the length of the line, we're probably looking at maybe, I would say, 38 amp capacity, maybe 37. And that's if it's using 6 gauge wire, which 6 gauge should be good for 50 amp or maybe 48 amp with this long of a run. I'll check that on the other end where the wires come out the wall into the junction box. So if that's the case, some rough math in my head, we probably want to get this wired up and then limit the EV charger to probably around comfortably 30 amps. And that's not to the peak of what that EV charger is capable of, 50 amp charger, but that's going to be much safer to avoid any sort of problems or electrical hazards and things like that with the breaker and the stuff running through the walls, the wiring. So I'm going to shoot for that 30 amp marker once we're done installing. It's good to know what I'm working with. And then the EV charger is capable of more amperage, which is good because at some point in the future, I've got a sub panel way over there in the garage. It's a 200 amp sub panel. I'm not sure exactly how it's wired from here to the sub panel. We can figure that out at a later point. And if I ever wanted to, I can wire another 240 receptacle or junction box directly off that sub panel, give it a 60 amp breaker, and run that charger at 50 amps or 48 amps comfortably. But for now, we'll stick 30 amps as the final config, and based on what we've got in the wiring, that should be safe. Let's go to the other side of the house and start work on the installation. Now we're over in the garage, and this is where we're probably going to install it. I'll get you a wide angle shot here. Sorry about the giant mess to clean up. This is the 2-car portion of our garage. That's my project area, and then we've got one more garage over there. But this is where this thing is going to park. Once this mess is cleaned up, it'll park over here, and my truck will be over there. So this is the wife's car. It's going to sit over here. That makes it a perfect spot for us to use this 240 volt outlet. This is a 50 amp receptacle. You saw the breaker is a 40 amp on the other end. And with the long run from here to there, 30 amp is what we're going to aim for on the setting. Now at some point I may opt to hardwire the Autel charger and remove the receptacle and replace it with a junction box. For now, what we're going to do is mount the Autel here. Let me zoom out here. Yeah, right there on the wall. That way we've got room to wrap the cord around it. It's not too close to where we walk, to where the cord might get in the way. I think that's going to be the ideal position for it. And there should be a stud somewhere right here, I think, because this guy's got to be bolted or nailed to a stud. So more than likely we have a stud there we can use for the mounting bracket. And we'll be far enough away from this guy that we're not going to accidentally run into the conduit in the wall for the receptacle. Then once we get that Autel mounted on the wall, probably maybe right here as far as height goes. My head is right about here. My wife is 5 foot, so 5'1" maybe. Don't tell her she's 5 foot. She's 5'2". That's what we're going to tell her. She's 5'2". She's right around here. So somewhere here, that way she's got easy access to wrap the cord back around it and plug the cable end into the holder. And it'll still be close enough to have the wire come out, make a small U, and plug into the receptacle. Before I do any of the wiring, I'm going to pull the receptacle off and check the connections behind it where the wires come into the back of the receptacle. A lot of times when these were originally installed, or if somebody replaced them, or maybe just over time they loosened up with the copper being squished down, you'll find loose connections in the back, and that's a big fire hazard. I'm gonna go grab my stud finder, mark my stud where it is. That way we know the location we're gonna be bolting into for the mounting bracket for the Autel charger. Got my helper Aiden here. He's gonna help me find the studs in the walls. We're using the Zircon stud finder. It's got the deep scan and the regular stud scan. Super basic, very cheap. I'll put the link to it on Amazon. You can pick it up at Lowe's or Home Depot as well. There's a button here on the side. I'm putting it on stud scan. You see right there? Switches to the left, and you depress this switch, and you kind of, oh, why is it flashing? Why are you flashing? There we go. Okay. And there's a stud right there. A little too far over the right. Let's see if there's one on this side. Probably over here, right next to this guy. I want to try to avoid this if I can, because I don't want to get close to the conduit. I don't know if the conduit's around here or here. It should be on this side of the stud. Let's see again. Yeah, this is too far over because it's right next to this mirror. I know I said I wanted it over here, but that stud's too close to the mirror and it's too far over. This stud, I want to try to avoid it just so I'm not right next to the conduit here. And here, because it's the corner of the wall and a load supporting section of the wall, I think we've got probably 3 studs going up right here. So let's see where the studs start going this way, and maybe we'll be able to mount it right here. And my stud is over here trying to find wood in his chest. You find a stud? Mm-hmm. So let's start there. Yep, good job. So right there, go back a little bit, right where it starts. Okay, so you see the arrow right there? Good job, Aiden. Uh-oh. Yep, so draw a little line right there. Oh no! It's okay, just draw it. Doesn't have to be perfect, just mark it. Perfect. So that's where our studs start, and they go all the way till about 5/8, 3/4 of an inch to the side. Yeah, you can mark it there, that's fine. All right, so that's where our studs are. Good job, Aiden. Now, let's see how our mounting plate and our charger is gonna line up there. I don't want it to go over this edge, right? Because that would look funny, right? So we want it to stay over this way if we can. And this is a big shoe shelf I built a few years ago. Right there on the wall. So there's nothing back there. What are you doing? So let's see where this lines up. This is our mounting plate that comes with the kit. The 2 holes right here and right here, these 2 are the ones that mount to the wall. It's come with the hardware as well. This hole at the bottom is the securing hole that you tighten the screw on the bottom of the actual charger to hold in place. And these 2 top ones are the ones where the 2 mounting tabs drop into it. So what we want is to get this in a position where it's on the studs. So that means these 2 center holes have to be on the stud. Our stud line is right there, so we can put this thing all the way over to about here and still be able to get the screws into the studs. And that'll put it in a position, let me reposition this camera. And so there's our stud line, you see to the right. And if we move over maybe 1/2 inch from that, so we make sure to grab a stud with the mounting screws. Still gives us lots of room on either side so that the charger itself is not going to overlap with the outside. Now the charger is a little bit wider than this bracket. It'll probably come out to about here, but that's still plenty further in from the edge of the wall. So let's do that, and I'm going to move it up here, like we were saying, a little taller than my wife's comfort height and shorter than mine by a long shot. So right about there. And what I want to do is get it high enough to where we can kind of make a U shape with the wire down at the bottom that'll eventually connect to this receptacle. And that way it doesn't look too bad or out of place. So right about there, I think, yep, right there. So right about there is where we're gonna go. Here's the hardware that comes with the kit. We're not gonna need these two plugs because we're going directly into a stud. I would not recommend putting this into sheetrock as much as you're going to be tugging on that cable each time. Find a stud to bolt this into, or concrete block or brick. I think this is for the safety screws that hold the panel on. We'll put that to the side for now. This one I think is for the screw that firmly mounts the bottom of the charger to the bracket. These two are going to be our wood screws that hold the bracket to the wall. This is going to be a block off screw that I don't think we'll be using for where the wires come out. And this is going to be the screw, the bolt at the bottom of the charger that secures it to the bracket. So for now, we need these two. Let's mark our holes and get it on the wall. Normally, I would use my 1/4 inch impact to get these into the wall. Super easy, but just to show the process with some basic tools that you might have if you don't have an impact, you're going to need a 10mm socket. You might be able to use standard size and not metric. If you have that, just make sure it's the right socket size. For the metrics, this is a 10mm. You're gonna need your ratchet, and you're gonna need a little pen to mark the holes if you want to mark them, or you can just hold them up there and put it in, and then we'll get those bolted into the wall. I've got the two screws started. I use the level here on the side to make sure I'm level as close as possible to 0 degrees so it's not crooked. Not as easy as an impact, but even hand tools will do. Sometimes you just got to work with what you got. So I'm doing that to show you that anybody can install one of these. Especially if you already have a receptacle, you don't need an electrician. If you don't have a receptacle and you need a line run, unless you're familiar with how this stuff works, at least get an electrician to put your receptacle or your junction box in. For me, I've done this many times. If I needed to put one of these in, I could do it myself, at least if it's close to the main panel. But in this case, I'm lucky, and there's one close to where I need it. Depending on what city you're in, most electricians, and how far it is from the junction box, from the main panel, most electricians, depending on the city, you'll be charged somewhere between $100 to, I'd say, $250 if it's not terribly far from your panel. If it's really far from the panel, you may have a lot more conduit, labor, materials involved. Could be up to several $100s, but if you're not too far from the panel, somewhere in the couple $100 range, maybe $300 if you live in a more expensive area where labor's higher. So you want to get these nice and firm, because that's all that's holding this charger to the wall. Make sure to pull on it, wiggle a little bit, and confirm you've got it nice and snug. There we go, that thing's not going anywhere. So now that panel's on the wall, the mounting panel, mounting bracket, whatever you call it, let's get the charger itself up there. If we take a look at the charger, the back of it, you'll see it's a very simple mounting setup. It's got these two nubs at the top, and those slide into the top of that bracket. And then at the bottom, see that threaded hole? That is where that bottom mount goes to secure it. So now I'm gonna get this out of the box along with the charging cable and everything that's attached to it. Let me get some of this packaging out of the way. Here, let's grab this. Trying to do this one-handed here. With two hands, you'll have an easier time. I'm gonna hang this on the two top holes. I'm gonna secure the bottom through that bolt right there using this little bolt that came with it right here. Bear with me. Let me see if I can do this one-handed. That cable is really heavy. So you line up these nubs. Boom. Oh man, that was way easier than I thought. Let's see if we got it straight. Yeah, that is about as close as I can get without being too scientific about it. So that's on, and as you can tell, it wiggles a little bit. What we need to do is get that bolt inserted right there to secure it. Let's do that. You want to use this tool that came with the kit and get that guy tight right there. Got that nice and snug. Let's see how tight this guy is now. Oh yeah. You know, I was kind of concerned that that wouldn't be enough to hold this thing, but this is firm. It ain't going anywhere. This is about as good as any installation's gonna get without getting to the commercial grade chargers. So that's good and done. Next step is to pop off this front panel. First thing you need to do is grab the smaller tool, and we want to undo these two bolts right here and right here. Got those off. They look like this. Let's put them aside. Now we need to separate this front cover. See, there's a small tab you can grab here. Let's see if that's enough to pull it off, or if we need a pry tool. Oh, there we go. So you got a little bit of a gap there. You can gently go around the edge. Oh, there it goes. Whole thing popped off. Let's see what the back looks like so you know where the clips are. Two at the top. You got 1, 2, 3 clips at the side. At the bottom, there's no clips. It's just the bolts. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 clips on that side. Oh, I guess there's 4 on this side too. So that's what it looks like overall. Now that we've got that front panel off, we need to get the access panel off, which is this guy here. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bolts, and that's going to use the smaller tool that came with the kit. Yeah, you can tell the improvement on the designs from the older ones. So now I've got the bolts off, and I just noticed there's a little finger indentation right here. There's the focus. Not on this side, but on this side. So we can pop your finger under there and easily remove the panel. I'm not sure if that was there on the older styles, but I think that's newer. All these little improvements definitely go a long way. So you'll notice some wires connected. These are the power ground and 2 power leads, 2 hot leads and a ground that go to the charging cable. As you can see, they go straight down and into this cable coming out. So those you want to leave in place. You want to stick a screwdriver on each one of these, just snug them, just in case anything's come loose in shipping and whatnot during manufacturing. The other side, you'll see the 3 open leads for your power. One of them, the one on the right, that one there, that's your label for the ground wire, which is typically going to be your green. And then you've got your hot lead number 2, hot lead number 1. And those are the 2 that you're going to want to connect from your power source. Other thing you'll notice is that you have a wire access port right here as well. So if you want to hardwire this, instead of having an ugly cable coming out of the bottom and going to a junction box, what you can do is mount this directly over an inset junction box. Basically mount it right on top of this and make sure that this hole lines up with your outlet where the wires would come out, and then the wires would come through this hole and directly there. That way it's a very clean installation and you don't have to look at any of this mess. You know, as I was just making that last part of the video, I thought to myself, why even use a cable? Why don't I do exactly what I just described? So I pulled the cover off of this. I'm gonna pull the screws off of this and see if I have enough wiring in there to be able to pull it out and then you know, come through here and reach. If I do have enough cabling, I'm just gonna take this off, reposition it on this stud, and install it here. Why not? No point doing this twice. All right, I got this thing off. I think I have enough wire. I'm actually pretty certain I got enough wire. Those are still folded up, so when they come out, that'll be enough length. The other thing, which is a pleasant surprise, is that I have very thick gauge wire. This looks like 6 gauge. That makes me a lot more comfortable with how far this cable run's going to the other side of the house, to that primary panel. That's a good thing. So that makes me happy. Ground wire is a little small, but no big deal. The power's being carried in the hot leads. Let's get this receptacle off. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna test the wiring, make sure we don't have power here. Remember when I was telling you that you should pull these out and check all the screws? As I pulled this thing forward, that ground wire just completely popped out of the hole. I'm sure it was tied at some point, but that would have been a big safety hazard. So please, please, please do yourself a favor. Whenever you're installing something like this, check all the wiring at your receptacle, go back to the breaker, check the wiring at the breaker, make sure it is all nice and snug. Because this is not something that's gonna be on for 5 or 10 minutes or 30 minutes while you cook an omelet. It's gonna be on all night. And these wires will heat up, and if everything's not connected correctly, you could burn your house down. I don't wanna scare you off, I just wanna tell you, do your due diligence, check your stuff. And if you have an electrician installing this stuff for you, you stand over their shoulders, be a bug in their ear, pester them all you want, and make sure they do all of these things. Because if they don't, they're skipping steps, and they're gonna put your home at risk. So check this stuff, please. Safety is #1, especially with electricity. There's a lot of lazy electricians out there too, and you have no idea what they're doing. It's your home, your responsibility. Check what they're doing, double check their work, stand over their shoulders. Be annoying if you want, or just tell them, hey, I'm just hanging out, just see what's going on. It's your house, your responsibility. Got this guy off, and this one was pretty good and tight. This one was snug, not tight enough, so they were all worth checking, especially this bad boy right here. It was just falling out. Let's check one more time. Do we have enough length? That's how much we got there without overstressing that wiring coming out. So what is that, about 6 inches? And we need enough to go from there, make a bend, and come up to here. I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. So let me get this thing dismounted. I'm gonna pull that little mounting bolt off the bottom, pop it off, relocate our bracket. We've got this off now so I can see exactly where the stud is. The stud is right next to this junction box. So I got it mounted there. Let me show you where this bracket ended up. So as you can see, the bracket's right there on the stud. Can't really mount it here. The only way I could put it here is maybe put a square piece of plywood there, mount that to the stud, and then mount the charger to the plywood, but I don't really want to do that. So this is my best option at this point. Let me put the charger back on. So charger's back on. As you can see, there's a big ugly hole here. Might have to make a little panel to block that off, or use a maybe a single gang plate. Actually, you know what? A single gang plate would fit perfectly there. I have a few in the back garage I can put there, just the white blanking plate. And here's the wires, and here's our hole, so that lines up really well. What I'm gonna do is take this back off and remove that plug, and that way we'll have a nice clean installation where we don't have the big ugly plug in the receptacle. This will be a lot cleaner. You know, I'm glad I'm making this video, because otherwise, if I wasn't talking through the whole thing, I would have just done it the other way. You can do it either way, but this is going to be cleaner and a much better connection. Fewer junctions for the wiring, which means fewer resistance points and less points of failure. So the wires are going to go directly here instead of to the plug, and then from the plug to the plug connector, and then the plug connector over the wire here. That's going to remove 1, 2, it's going to remove 3 more points of connection, which is great. Anytime you can have fewer points of connection in an electric system, the better. The charger off, placed on the ground. You want to remove this guy. I'm being lazy and not grabbing a bigger flathead. Oh, this will work. Lazy sometimes leads to trouble, but sometimes it's okay. That is off. There's a nut that was on the inside, and then this little threaded plastic cap from the outside. Let's get this back on the wall. And as I'm putting it on the wall, what I'm gonna do is thread these cables through that hole. You may need a second person. I'm gonna try to do this by myself because my son just went inside and playing games with his buddies. So let me try to see if I could do this by myself. You may need a second person. Not that it's terribly heavy, it's just awkward to thread those wires in while trying to get this on the bracket. Charger's back on the wall. Got the wires in through the hole right there. And we've got plenty of length as expected. Now, what I'm gonna do is grab a pair of pliers and squish the ends of these, loosen up these terminal screws, and one by one, get them into the holes. I'm gonna start with the ground just because it's smaller and easier to maneuver. Then I'll get to the first hot lead, and then the second hot lead. If you take a look at the terminals right there underneath, I don't know if you can see it in the video, that's where the wires go, right there, and right there. So when you loosen these up, it's gonna loosen up that connection. You'll be able to put the wire in there and then clamp them down with the screws on each terminal. Ground wire is in and tight. Make sure to move it, wiggle it around, make sure there's no slack on it. Second one is in. That's our first hot lead. Now let's get the last one. Last one is in. Do another wiggle check. Make sure nothing's binding up. Make sure you don't have any wires too close to each other. Got good separation everywhere. I think we're good to go. All right, so apparently there's a little knob. We'll find that here in a second. You've got numbers 0 through 9, and this chart tells you what the numbers mean. Position 0 is nothing. Position 1, 16 amps with a recommended breaker size of 20. Position 3, 32 amps with a recommended breaker size of 40. That's probably where we're gonna be. And you've got 40 amps, recommended breaker size of 50, 48. Breaker size recommended is 60, 50. Recommended breaker size, 70. And the 7, 8, 9 position are not in use. So what I'm gonna be looking for is position number 3. Let's see, where is it? Somewhere on the right. Oh, that's a lot smaller than I thought it would be. Haha, that's what she said. All right, so right now it's pointing at the number 6 position. Number 6 position is 50 amp. That's not what we want. So I'm gonna turn it to the number 3 position. Okay, got my little flathead. I got it set to the number 3 position. I gotta say, this is my first gripe with this entire unit. There's no firm click or anything like that for me to be confident that it's set in the right position. I know I got it on number 3 just visually, but it sure would be nice to have a click or something for feedback so I know it's in the right spot. Now I'm gonna get this panel on, then we'll turn the power on, make sure nothing blows up. You know, before I get that panel on, I'm gonna turn the power on. Let's go turn the breaker on and come back. All right, I got that breaker turned back on. Had my son in the garage just to keep an eye on it and tell me, yes, it's on. Now let's go back and do the rest of the install. Awesome, power is on. We're not gonna touch any of the buttons yet. Let's put this cover back on. You ready, Aiden? You wanna help me? All right, a little helper. Just getting these screws tight. Nice and firm with my dirty fingerprints everywhere. This is nice and tight. Let's get this front panel back on. Aiden, you want to do it for me?
Sure, my hands are...
All right, here. So line it up and start at the top and just push and clip it in. And you'll feel it snap into place. Just on the edges. There you go. Yep. All right, do the top, make sure it's all snug. And if you want, check the side, make sure there's no gaps. Good? You wanna check the other side? All good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's good. Nice and tight. We got 2 more screws that go down here. See these 2? Hold the cover. You wanna put those on for me? How's it looking?
Good.
All good? So grab the bottom and yank on it. Make sure everything's tight. No, the bottom of the whole case.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 hands. Put one on either side. Pretty tight?
Yeah.
No moving? All right. Got the entire thing laid out here just so I can see how far it goes. I'm really glad I got the Autel 25 foot. The 20 foot probably would have worked, but the cable would have been stretched. So I got it all laid out here before I show you how it wraps up, just to make sure it all lines up correctly. I really like this heavy gauge cable, and this actual terminal is really well built, very heavy, thick plastic, good materials. You can tell good feedback on the switch and the spring right here. You can tell it's really well made. This stores, there's 2 models of these. You can get one with a separate hook that comes with a little J hook, and this receptacle is on the hook itself, so you wrap it around there, then you plug it in. Or I like this model better because instead of having a separate hook, this is a lot cleaner. It actually wraps around the entire unit. You can tell there's a little lip here to hold the cable in place, so you'll loosely wrap it around there and then plug the end of the cord into here for storage. That's it. I guess I could have been a little bit cleaner about wrapping it to make it more even. Let's see, is that closer? No. Well, whatever. I'll rewrap it again, but that's how it wraps up. Nice, out of the way, and whenever you need it, you just grab here, press the button. Let's see if I can zoom in some more. Right there. Press the button, pull it out, and you unwrap it. I've only got it wound around 3 times, and you'll take it to your car and plug it in. Now let's see about plugging it in. Is the car open? Yep, there it is. The bottom port, if you have a ability to do a DC fast charger on your car, you'll generally see these bottom 2 ports. Sometimes they have a cover, sometimes they don't. You don't use those with the home level 2 chargers. Those are for the level 3 DC fast chargers. Let's get this thing off the charger. You can see how easy that is, even one-handed as I'm doing now. And we'll pull it over. There we go. And over to the vehicle. Line it up. Plugged in. And that's it. Go through the initialization. That just means it's not charging yet. Blue means it's charging. And on this car, we have indicators of what the lights mean. Not charging, locked, low charge, I guess, with the pulsing, and then pulsing means it's charging, and it has higher battery. And unlocked is white. So right now, we're at a higher battery capacity, and it's charging. If you go back to the wall charger here, you'll notice that the charge light is flashing right there. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have the need to have this outside, you can equip it with the RFID cards so that only you can use it. This is outside of my normal types of videos. I'm usually building fun trucks and cars and turbo stuff and gas guzzlers. I'm not really a big environmentally friendly guy wanting to save the planet with an electric car. I just like cool cars, and this one seemed like a neat next one for us. It's fast because it's electric. It's quiet. Yeah, kind of miss the exhaust sound myself personally. And it's something different, cool technology. I don't know about whether electric cars are good for the environment or not. I'm not really convinced of that personally. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We'll probably learn about all the side effects of what all this is doing to the environment in the next 20, 25 years. And then everybody will change their mind again. Who knows? But it's a car, it's neat, and it's a different kind of experience. That's really all it is for us. So don't give me too much crap about an electric car. I'm not a tree hugger. I take care of the environment, but I'm not stupid either. There's a lot of politics involved in all that mess. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a really cool unit. I'm gonna wipe it down, get all my dirty fingerprints off there. Highly recommend it. Installation was super easy. I really like the app. Unfortunately, I can't show you the app on this video. I can't get my screen record to work at the moment. But I highly recommend this charger. I'll put the link down in the description on Amazon where I bought it. Regular price is $5.99. I bought it on a flash sale for $4.69. Keep an eye on it. Maybe you'll find it for the same price, or maybe you'll find the restocked ones that people return to Amazon. If you look at the bottom of the listing, usually it'll tell you if there's any Amazon warehouse listings of ones maybe people return that, you know, change their mind or whatnot. But I really do recommend it. For a 50 amp smart charger, is really high quality, and for the price tag, you're not going to come close with anything else. You can also use it with your Tesla. If you have a Tesla with the different type of charging adapter, you just need to grab the adapter for the end that allows you to use it both on a regular electric vehicle and a Tesla vehicle. I'll leave the link to that in the description too, just in case you got a Tesla. In the meantime, guys and girls, I love y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to support the channel, and I will see you next time. Believe it or not, this is the first time we're charging this thing. Let's see what the interface looks like in the car. We've got 53% current capacity. Looks like a 7.5 kilowatt charge rate. And current electric range is 213 miles. And I have the max set at 90%. Oop, where'd it go? Well, wherever it went. I had the max set at 90% so that it doesn't charge the battery to 100%. If we ever need to take a long road trip or something, I'll charge it to 100%. But for regular use, I think most people recommend 80%. I just set it to 90. No big deal. Oh, there's the screen. Fancy pantsy. Anyway, love y'all. See you later.